Hello and welcome to Practically Magic. This is Courtney Pearl, your local folk witch and healer. Today I am joined by Kathy Poss, who's a financial wellness and budget coach for solo women in wealth. Welcome, Kathy.
Oh, thank you so much, Courtney. I love this and I love what you do, and I've been looking forward to talking to you today. And just thank you for welcoming me into to your universe. I love it.
Weird and wacky and woo-woo universe. And a lot of people, I mean, we've met at the Daybreak Business community, and a lot of people might think that we don't have a lot in common. Kathy is very well put together. She is very professional. She is athletic and professional, financial advisor and coach. And, here I show up at these business meetings and I'm like, hey, I'm Daybreak's local witch, you know, and the more I've gotten to know you, as we'll talk about a little bit later, I'm like, there's actually a lot we have in common that I think people will be surprised to find out. So
Absolutely.
I'm excited
Yeah.
to dive into that. Well, we're going
Yeah.
to start with pulling a card as we usually do. So Kathy can help me analyze this card if she wants to. We're going to
Okay.
pull from today. I have the Celtic Tarot deck from Christopher Hughes. I'm a big fan of his. He wrote the book Druidry. He's head of the Anglesey Order of Druids in Wales, which I hope to be a part of someday. It's kind of my long-term dream to be a druid.
Mm,
And
love it.
I'm going to pull. Today I have pulled the card, the Six of Cauldrons, which in a traditional tarot deck, that's like the Six of Cups. And so we're talking about emotional energy in this card. And I I think so. I'm gonna look at this. If you can see, well, I'm gonna try to pull it in. There's a
Yes.
little girl and this cauldron, and there's more cauldrons in the background on the stone monument. And I think that's Scottish thistle that's growing or that's inside of the cauldron they're handing each other in this picture. So if you
Right.
watch on YouTube, you can see the image. Um, but I normally
Beautiful.
the number six is harmony, and the Scottish thistle, just in a personal context of that, it's a very invasive flower. It's the national flower of Scotland, and it was brought here to America, and you've probably seen it. We have it in Utah everywhere, like
Oh, yes.
in the fields, little purple spiky flowers, and they're all over the mountains. They're yeah, they're pretty invasive. I mean, they kind of just take over. Once they plant themselves somewhere, you're going to see thousands of them grow, which I think to me is a real symbol of abundance. So as we're talking about money today, we're going to talk about money.
Yeah.
I think this is a really hopeful card for all of us because it's just talking about like passing on. I think we have an older person passing this on to a younger person. And I think
Yeah.
it's kind of like creating our own abundance in life, creating belief systems of abundance, and hopefully being able to pass that on to future generations. Do you have any
I
thoughts about
agree. Yeah. And I love the thistle. I mean, I grew up in the East Coast and we had thistle everywhere. I thought when I was growing up, I thought that was, I mean, I'd pick them. I
that?
thought they were just beautiful flowers, right?
Yeah.
And many can be such a, a prickly subject to talk about, but yet from
Mm.
another person's perspective, it's a beautiful thing. So,
That's a good
yeah.
point too, because um, I've heard it said, legend says that in Scotland it was a great flower for them because it was so prickly and they had footwear that was like leathery and they were able to march their armies through fields of the thistle without harming their feet. But then invading armies didn't have that protection on their feet and it helped protect Scotland. So
Ooh,
something can be beautiful can also be a little prickly
right.
and it actually can be to our benefit.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm
Yes.
gonna dive into a story here that I just we're gonna talk about finances, wealth, money, prosperity. Um, and I actually just did a money spell a couple of weeks ago. So for those of you listening, if you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, I made a reel of my money spell. Um, I haven't made a habit of doing that very often, but I thought,
Mhm.
why not? I'm gonna give this a try. So I took a green candle. I cut an orange in half and I put cinnamon and basil on top, and then I wrapped a leaf with red string around the candle, and I wrote money, how much money I wanted to attract,
Mhm.
wrapped it on the candle, and then I put it in the orange, and then I lit it, and you have to let it burn all the way down.
Oh.
So it's not the end of October at this point where we're recording this. So I'll have to give an update to see if my money shows up by the end of the month. It's
Right.
supposed to be in October. So I was like, it's an October spell. I'm like, let's give it a shot. I've done things like this before, and I have been able to manifest the amount of money that I put out into the universe. So
Right.
this is just another different way of doing it, and we'll
I
see
love it.
what comes of it.
I love it.
Might want to try it, if you see
Yeah.
that working out for you.
Yeah,
Um, so
that's great.
and we've been hanging out at the DBC for what, a year now. And
Yes, I know. Time flies.
yeah, it was so wonderful to like have so many different people with their different areas of expertise just, coming together and being like, well, I do this and I do this. But when you did your it was the Business in Bloom, I think, and
Right.
went and you did your presentation, kind of just showcasing what you do. And um I don't know. I guess I just thought, oh yeah, finances, wealth, sure. Like it's great to help people with that. And I've always been pretty good with money personally.
Right.
I may not be the most advanced business wise. I'm still writing my expenses on a piece of paper.
And that's okay.
That's where I'm at right now.
Absolutely.
No
It's so
QuickBooks for
personal finance is personal, as we say.
yeah. Yeah. So I'm still doing it the old fashioned way, but that right now is all I really need. And and then when you did your presentation, you were talking a lot about belief systems and talking about like how we interact with money. And I thought, wait a minute, this is a lot of the work that I do in the healing world as far as when I'm doing emotional processing with clients. I'm helping them unblock things that they don't even know they have in their subconscious.
Right. Right.
And you can't manifest money or wealth or prosperity without kind of being aware or unblocking what scarcity beliefs you might be holding on to. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I love this, Courtney, because it's really meaningful to me, because diving into what blocked my own personal journey has created so much in my life. And, I look at money personally as, money is just a tool. And I don't really focus on myself or my clients on numbers. It's really how it makes you be able to create a life of purpose. And so I always start there. What is your purpose and your values? And that's where I think the wellness community, that's where we intersect, because we're all saying the same thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
no matter where you are in your wellness journey, I mean, we're all wanting to just live a life where of joy, not in fear, not in scarcity, but in abundance. And in abundance can be, a different meaning to everyone as well. And so then when we go back and we say, okay, well, I want to get here, but how, what are those mindsets that I have, one, probably grown up with since I was really small. So we have our money stories and our role models, and then that has created some behaviors that, have been beneficial, but maybe also, we need to look at and see if, certain behaviors are blocking where we want to go in life with our finances. And to me, that's incredibly important. Um, because like I tell my clients, there's a math way to do things. Okay, math is pretty objective. It's 1 + 1 is 2, right? I mean, we can't really argue those things, but really what matters the most are our behaviors and how we feel towards it, in our attitudes, and putting um, benchmarks, or putting, social norms that we may take on ourselves, is a lot of times a disservice because it just doesn't align with us. And so we're kind of out there going, why isn't this working?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's really the heart of what I do. Hmm.
And I did win that night of Business in Bloom, the
Yeah.
Go Giver book, which is still sitting on my shelf along with my long list of books I need to read.
Me too.
So I'm like, I know how important it is. I know it's going to be a great read. So I'm like, there it is. I have a long way to go when it comes to my own interaction with money and how um it's interesting in the healing world how it is very similar to other aspects of healing. And I will be interviewing a fitness coach in a couple of weeks, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But really, in my world, there's not a lot of difference in what we're healing within ourselves to be able to unblock what it is we want. Whether
Right.
it's like money or whether it's losing weight and getting fit.
Right.
I don't know if I'm sure you probably have at least heard of it, the book Atomic Habits.
Oh, yes. I use it all the time.
I talk about it a lot with clients because I'm like, your subconscious is a jury of, 11 people who all think you're not good enough or that
Right.
you don't deserve the money you'd like to have or the prosperity and success you'd like to have um or your fitness goals, whatever that might be. There's a jury in your subconscious, and then there's one juror that does believe that you're worthy, and that's the one that you're hearing going, I want this so bad. Like I want it and I feel it and I want it. But how do you get that one juror to convince the other 11 that you are worthy? Like you're going to be able to get this. It's not enough to just say, "Okay, I'm I want this much money, so I'm just going to save this much money. I'm just not going to spend as much and I'm going to save more." And
Right.
sounds so simple. Like you said, that's just numbers, right?
That's just numbers. Yeah,
And
it is.
see. But
But well, yeah.
doing it, that's where you get stuck, right?
Right. Oh, yeah, doing it. And I find a lot of times the doingness gets stuck because, why are you saving? Why? And then go keep asking yourself why. And making sure that aligns with something you are so tied into personally that I am willing to go there's a balance, right? I mean, there's a balance. If I'm going to save because I'm really connected to this purpose and who I am and my values, then it should be pretty easy to say I'm going to not do these other things. I'm not going to spend this money. I'm going to look at that behavior because I'm so connected with why I'm saving. And we can go through all the, so many of those scenarios, but really just getting really focused in and living in a sense of joy. And this is and not just for the future. We think about the future so much, which is important. I mean, I am, in what I do, we think about the future, and I want everyone to be prepared for the future. But for right now,
Yeah.
we can live this right now.
Yeah.
Um, and that's really important because, um, of my experiences I've gone through in the last 6 years, yeah, you never know what tomorrow will be. So it's important to, um, get all that aligned and start living your life now.
Yeah. And when you talk about living in joy, I love that you've said that because what I teach and what I work with clients, and you do too. See, that's
Mhm.
why I think,
Yeah.
you wouldn't call yourself a witch, you wouldn't call yourself a healer, but people don't realize you probably are more than you think you are. Because what we're
My
both
kids
doing,
do.
well, what we're both doing, the work that we're doing is helping people to resonate their whole body and
Mhm.
mind and soul with the same vibrational frequency, which is going to be more aligned with joy, um, to match the future they're trying to attract. So being able to manifest um, and I love that you keep saying the why. Figuring out the why, you helping coach people on that rather than the how, because I
Right.
feel a lot of people, I mean, I'm guilty of it probably more than anybody. It's just like my own upbringing, my own, young child belief systems that come up, but it's like, how am I going to get there? I have
Right.
this goal. Now I need to figure out how. And
Right.
I have learned that the how is so much less important than I would have ever thought. I thought
Right.
you were supposed to make a plan and you were supposed to, you know,
Yeah.
outline all the steps to take and that it would be this and this and this and this. And really, you can't do any of that without first resonating at the right frequency, like being resonating in joy and gratitude in your now and present moment, and then being able to be like, okay, now what's my why? Why am I trying to get there? It's your will that propels you there, not the how, right?
Exactly. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's how many clients have come to me and said, I just can't make my budget work. Why can't I make this work? I mean, it shouldn't be this hard, but I can't find the tool. I can't find the right tool. I can't have the right spreadsheet. Those are great, but that's not why.
Yeah.
I mean, that's you need to, I mean, I always say the budget is it's a bad word that people don't want to hear, but it's your story. You
Story.
know, I think of it as your story. This is you. You get to create your story
Mhm.
and create you can call it whatever you want, but a, a vision that you feel really connected to. And then, yeah, you're right. The how, okay, well, there's a lot of reasons. I can throw tools at you and resources, and, I've got all the how, but the hard work is the why.
Yes.
And getting all that aligned and getting really deep, into, what is your morning money story and what kind of attitudes do you have towards money? Um, you
Mhm.
know, for instance, when I bring in my money habitudes and we talk about someone being a gifter, because I work only with women, women are givers. So I see a lot of women who are spending a lot of money on other people. Okay, so right. I mean, we do. And are we, is that aligned? We assume it is, but are we gifting um, because that is so important to us? That is who we are. That's our identity. I want to give, I just want to give it away. That is what fills me up. Um, or is it a little bit of FOMO? Is it a little bit of status? Is it a little bit of, well, I've got to keep up, and just, kind of digging deep
Mhm.
into that and what's, um, making sure that if that is your why, that you're willing to give up some other things because of it,
Yeah.
which is, yeah, I'm never going to tell you not to do, no one ever should tell you not to do what's really connected to you. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it's
Well, and I can tell you that if it doesn't actually fill them like they think it will,
right.
that will become evident eventually.
Oh, absolutely.
Those are the clients I get who've been doing that pattern for however many years, probably a whole lifetime. I mean, we
Right.
usually go back to age 8 years old or 4 years
Mhm.
old in our sessions because they're like, that's when I figured out that giving myself to others was the way to get some kind of validation or to get whatever. But they call it, oh, it's filling my cup, it's filling my cup.
Right.
And it does until it doesn't.
Right.
Or
Exactly.
their why is different than they thought it was. So eventually they are in a state of great pain and um deflation. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's a
Taken advantage of, maybe a little taken
uh,
advantage of, or resentful.
yeah. And the words
Um,
out of their mouth are, but it fills my cup to give and to do and all of this. And if that were really true, it would be an energy exchange that felt
right.
equal and it felt
Mhm.
fulfilling. And sometimes it shows up as physical illness, sometimes in their body. And so when they're coming to me as clients going, oh my gosh, I have like back issues really bad, or I have, and I'm like, well, let's look at the energy or the patterns of what you've been giving and giving and giving, but you're not actually getting back what you thought you were,
Right. It
or
wasn't
what.
aligned.
It
Right.
wasn't aligned.
It wasn't
Exactly.
aligned. I love the energy. So I love the energy work, and I love, we all, like you talked about first, um, we're all speaking the same thing. All of us healers, all of us um, wellness professionals. We may use different vocabulary
Hmm.
um, in different modalities, but we're all speaking with the intention in mind. And I believe that, personal finance really is it's really necessary in personal finance because it really hasn't been there for ever. It's not something we normally would talk about.
Yeah. And a lot of this relates to like I've said, like in previous episodes I've talked about, the way that I kind of describe it as like if our bodies and brains were a computer, we've been downloading systems since we were in the womb, right? So when our neural pathways start to be developed when we're a fetus, we start developing these connections on how to get these chemical needs met. And so we've been developing these for a long time. Doesn't mean they always are correct or that they serve us. So
No.
that's usually where I come in to help people later is to go, okay, something just isn't quite working right, right? Like I thought this is how to get my needs met and it's not getting my needs met.
Right.
So we talked about how like that relating to then belief systems, thoughts, leading to emotions. And I think your 6 habitudes that you talk about, and I want people to know that I am going to, she sent me like a PDF of those. So I'm going to put those up on my blog when I do the blog post for this episode. So if you are listening and you're like, what are those? I want to know more about that and you want to see them, go to my blog on my website. But talk a little bit about those for us.
Yeah. So in my journey, I have a financial background and was a CPA. And so I was, right, what I was talking about. I mean, I was a math person, and you save and you put money aside and you put it for a later date. And when I got into the field, into financial coaching, was because of some significant changes in my life. And that's, a lot of times, we're going to keep changing and evolving, and big events in our lives do that to us, or for us, I
Yeah.
should say. They do it for us because they are absolutely the best things that ever happened to me, even though they were not good things that happened to me. But I really sank into this money behaviors. It was one of the first things that I learned about and I became proficient in. And there's 6 different habitudes, which is habits and attitudes towards money. They are planning, and security, spontaneous and carefree, giving and status. And right when I say all those, I know a lot of people are like, ooh, that's me. That's definitely not me. I would never be that way. And so we
Really?
all have these preconceived notions of what these our behaviors are towards money. And a lot can be tied back to our childhood, like we just discussed. I have a mother who is extremely security driven to the detriment of her health, and a father that was extremely spontaneous. So they were complete opposites, which a lot of times happens. And so I have a little bit of both in me. And um, when I sank into it, learning the balance between those two was really important to me. And I really believed, I'm not going to change who I am. I'm not going to change those things about me. But knowing and being aware of them and how I used to judge others,
Hmm.
really affects um, that whole idea of being in fear and being judgmental instead of being everyone has their own path, everyone has their own way and gifts in each of those areas that we all can learn from.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's really, first and foremost, it helps me tremendously in getting um, through some of the hard stuff that I went through and being able to make sense of it and to being able to honor who I was instead of myself judging myself, feeling a lot of shame.
Mm.
And so I think it's a wonderful tool to use. Here again, it's just a tool.
Yes.
There's a lot of conversations, a lot of work to do um, in using any kind of tool as well.
And just as you were saying this, it just occurred to me because I was looking at those six habitudes earlier, and I didn't even think about it. But when I teach people about those neural pathways in their brain, and like we're all trained to get a chemical need met, that's how those neural pathways were created.
Right,
And you said like security, well, that's the dopamine element. Those chemical needs our brain is trying to get. If we feel secure, if we feel safe, if we feel certainty, we're going to get hits of dopamine, right?
right,
So, it's just, I mean, even in we're talking about this relationship with money and finances, but this is so much more aspects of our life that we look at and say, how do I interact with this? And if I am, like you said, I'm going about it in a way that feels like maybe I'm getting a drip of dopamine when I'm like, I can't spend any money. I got to be safe. I got to be secure. I won't spend a single dime. I'm going to stay real safe. And then asking yourself, but does that fulfill your needs? Does it actually fulfill your needs? Or is it just kind of like a drip that you're getting? Your
wow,
little addicted brain is getting from those chemicals, or like the spontaneity is a great one for endorphins. I mean,
right,
you can see the correlation with how
yeah.
we do life,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
again releasing judgment on how people do it, because remember, people do what they do because they don't know any other way. They're
Right,
just trying to get those chemical needs met. And at some point in their childhood, probably before age 8, when their neural pathways were brain was all mapped, they
right,
had come up with this way. And they're like, so you talk about your mom being more secure. She probably came up with those patterns before she was 8 years old. And she's been living that way because she's like, this is the only way I know how to feel good.
absolutely,
And dad does it
absolutely,
a completely different way, but he's like, this is all I know. I
right,
know that this is how I get my needs met. I feel great when I do it this way.
Right.
And it works until it doesn't.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yes. It definitely works until it doesn't. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
for my mom, it was, um, you know, growing up in poverty and having the mindset that um, and there was never enough.
Hmm.
So even though it propelled her into a very successful career, earning enough money, it still was never enough. The goalposts kept moving. So while it was, like you just perfectly said, it was serving her till it wasn't. And then now it is to the detriment of her health because it did. It completely showed up in her health,
Yeah.
living that way.
As it will,
Right.
those of us in the wellness and healing world, we
Right.
understand the correlation between, the stress we put on our bodies when the neural pathways we have created are conflicting. Like it's
Right.
like I get this need met, but also like don't get this need met. So now these needs don't get met, and then I'm stressed, and the stress in my body creates these
Right.
physical symptoms. I mean, it's just all connected.
Right.
And
Yep.
just out of curiosity, does she happen to have back problems?
Oh, yes.
I ask because I
That
always
is
want to highlight that is when I meet someone, especially someone older, it's they're like, oh, my spine is deteriorated. I have vertebrae. I have pelvic issues or lower spine issues. I will ask, did you grow up in poverty? Because
right.
it is connected to the root chakra, our ability to feel safe and secure, rooted, grounded, like we have our feet on the ground.
Right.
And it's interesting because it's also very closely related to the sacral chakra, which affects our relationships with others.
Uh,
So when people and that's the color orange. In my spell that I mentioned earlier, I put it in an orange. Sometimes money spells will correlate with the color orange or the fruit orange because we're helping to heal the sacral chakra, and it's our creative center of our body. But it can also, for us women, it kind of results in issues with our reproductive organs. People with endometriosis and things, cysts and polyps in our ovaries and uterus and
right.
things like that. So for men,
Makes
it be the prostate and things like
right.
that they end up having issues with. So I'm pointing that out for people that may be like, huh,
Huh.
that's something too.
Hmm.
But you did mention like growing up in poverty. So we both have a little bit of experience in that realm. And I truly believe that more so than teaching people, children, whoever, the sort of spreadsheets and budgeting, and although I think that's all very important, I'm not saying we shouldn't teach high school kids how to do those kinds of things to go out into the world and be adults, but I truly believe. So I used to be a teacher in elementary school, and we were in an area of very low income demographic. We were a Title I school with 100% free and reduced or free lunches and breakfast for all the children.
Right.
And for those of you who speak education language, that's a very low income area.
Right.
This was in Phoenix, and um, I learned a lot from being a teacher there. We, as teachers, we had to kind of learn to speak the language. And, those of us who didn't grow up, I mean, we were very privileged, even though teachers don't make a whole lot of money. We were still very privileged people. And we didn't necessarily understand or could relate to people who were growing up in generational poverty. So
Right.
we did some deep dives and studies. We read as a group, as a staff, we read the language of poverty and did like a book study on it together. Learned a lot about that, but
Right.
it was interesting because although we learned a lot about that, world, what that meant for people, what it was like to teach students who were coming to school, you know, probably didn't sleep, probably didn't eat, probably didn't know who was picking them up from school. I mean, these kinds of things.
Hmm.
It helped in that aspect, but we talked a lot about, well, what do we do? How do we help these children break those patterns or break from that chain and help them be successful? Because you hear about rare stories where students who came from those backgrounds would, you know, be so determined and so ambitious and want to learn that they were like, I'm graduating high school, I'm going to college, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. But we didn't know as teachers how to create that, how
Right.
to inspire that. And it wasn't until after I finished teaching that I started learning about this work that I do now and realized I think, you know what that is. Our video just like had a moment. Anyway, um I realized that what I think that the missing bridge was for those students was not their IQ, their academics. I believe it's emotional intelligence. It's EQ more than anything.
Right.
And so you kind of talked about that because you were talking about like learning these habitudes about money would probably create success among students rising out of poverty more so than their academics, their grades. At least that's what I believe. What do you think about that and your experience?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And I think it helps with the stigma of shame, judgment, and
Mm-hmm.
I think if I work for a volunteer organization and do coaching through them, and all these women are, um, on the lower incomes scale. A lot of them come from transitional housing, and they are some of the most optimistic, motivated women I have ever been around in terms of wanting and understanding and really believing that they can do better for themselves and for their children. But the key always, the thing that has always, the common denominator in all of them has been understanding um, that they can do it and not being judged.
Mm,
Huge. I mean, every single client I've had has said, thank you so much for not judging me.
mm,
And so when it's a safe place that isn't judgmental, but is really, um, supporting the skills they do have. These, oh my goodness, they have so many skills. I mean, they can teach us all. I mean, I mean, they know how to get by,
oh
and
yeah.
it's incredible what they've done, and have probably never, have given, a lot of positive feedback in what they've already accomplished. Always look back. Always look back and celebrate your wins. I always say, and I think that's, yeah, I think that's really key. Is really um, addressing, you know, our past, but not living in our past. Um, Understanding who you are, so you don't feel shame from how you are and how you show up, and then surrounding yourself by good educators. You were good. I mean, you were right doing your thing. You were helping them just by being there and being and listening and being a role model. Seeing other people succeed and helping them feel good about themselves. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
When we can live in, like, we keep going back to, the joy and um they take what they've already learned and apply it um, with support. And yeah, that's tremendous. So I applaud you for working and being an educator in that situation.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and you don't feel like you're doing enough, and you don't
Yeah.
know sometimes where to go. And you're like, how can I help? Am I really making an impact? But you are,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
did. I guarantee you.
And I was young then, and I do believe that the work that we put into it, and just even doing that book study together and being like, we want to relate with these children and these families and be able to relate to them in a way that doesn't make them feel shame and doesn't make them feel judged, right? Like,
Right.
because a lot of us kind of felt like, and I knew one of the teachers I was teaching with, she reminded me of the teacher in Freedom Riders, where she goes into that high school. I mean, it's like rough area. Her first day of teaching, and she's wearing pearls.
Right.
I heard the actual teacher that movie was based on. I heard her speak at one of the teacher conferences, and she was like, "I actually did walk in there the first day wearing pearls. It was a huge mistake." That wasn't relatable, and the kids
Right.
felt, obviously judged, or felt like, "Oh, look at you
Mhm.
coming in here with your pearls on. Who are you to teach us?" And it's kind of a culture shock, because it is a culture. I mean, like, you have to, yeah, go in there. And I just wish I would have known some of the things I know now. I mean, now I know that on the scale of energy level, shame is at the very bottom.
Right.
And if you're carrying around shame in any aspect, whether it's about money or your financial, status, or that kind of thing, or about something else, but it's going to vibrate in your body it's going to pull all of your
Gosh, so much.
down. And
Yes.
how can you rise to meet with what you're looking to accomplish, or what you're looking to manifest? So,
Right. Right. Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, well, I would love to get involved if if you see any use for an energy healer and the work that you do, or you happen to meet upon a person who you're like, hey, maybe you could benefit from meeting my friend Courtney.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely. I
yeah.
think it's so important, the work that you do, and everyone in the wellness arena. Because, yeah, I mean, I really, subscribe to the wheel of wellness. I mean,
Mhm.
we're all working on a holistic approach. Um, and, not in isolation, because we know, I mean, our we don't work in isolation.
Right.
It's so
We
we
need that.
need to, yeah, come together in a holistic approach, to all these different aspects of our lives.
Very true. Well, I do have a couple of money spells. I have my, like, um spell cards I like to refer to if I'm looking for something specific. So I am going to pull together a couple of these money spells for people listening who are more along the witchy side of things and would like to try to manifest some money in their lives. My favorite is always to um, do an affirmation of money, or of their money beliefs, and write it with their non dominant hand. So, writing an affirmation with your non dominant hand can help you kind of reconfigure those neural pathways that might be limiting. And,
I
I don't
love it.
deserve money, or I don't deserve success. So take 2 weeks to write in your journal every single day, either in the morning when you first wake up, or right before you go to sleep at night. And you just write one sentence like, um, I have success and money coming my way, or, however you want to word that as a statement. Make sure that it's a statement, like an affirmation. It's already true. I already know it. But
Mhm.
you write it with your non dominant hand for 2 weeks every day. Best if you can write it 3 times each. But I have done that one, and I actually manifested. I wrote, I will have $2,000 by the end of 2 weeks, or something like that. And I wrote
Right.
it every day. And it totally worked. My husband came home after 2 weeks. He didn't know I was doing this, but he came home and he goes, I just bonused at work $2,000. And I was like, you're
Thank you very
welcome.
much. It was all me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he worked really hard for that bonus as well. So we can give him the credit for that part. But yeah. Um, so
Oh,
anyway, that's just one of many that I like to do. But there are a lot of different kind of cool herbs and um, elements that you can add into. Obviously, I mentioned the orange, the green candle, because green is often associated with money being greenbacks,
right.
dollar bills. So if you want to incorporate colors into your spell, I never teach people that there is a specific or certain way to do a spell or a prayer or manifesting what is asking for what it is you want. The most important thing I think is that people believe in it and believe because you have to have the will and
Mm,
believe that you deserve to have it and that that's really the most important part. So I think whatever symbols and whatever things you want to put into your own spell, it's totally up to you. If it's specific to you, like a memory you have or a specific connection, personal connection you have to something, then add it into your spell and it'll work for you. So I will post some of those and some ideas there on my blog for people who want to look those up and get some ideas. And hopefully that will be helpful for all of you listening who want to manifest money. But if they
I'm on it.
if
I'm on
they
it.
not want to do spells, if that's not your thing, or
I
even
love
if you do want to do spells, but you also want to go a more practical route, Kathy, tell us where they can find you for your coaching and help.
Yeah, I have right now I'm doing a 30-day financial wellness boot camp. And in my program, I don't take on a lot of clients because it really is a boot camp. And I really believe in coaching isn't just a one off kind of situation, but we need accountability and we need to really um, have that connection, vulnerability, and trust. And so I have that going on right now. You can find me at my email is Kathy with a K and a Y at Kathy and then my last name Poss .com, as well as my website Solo Women and Wealth. I'm also on LinkedIn and eventually I'll be on Instagram and other things, but
If you want to,
you know.
girl,
I'm a slow mover in that direction.
that's all right. Once you start, it's a whole other thing. So I'm like, you got to keep it up and it's a whole thing. So I think it's great. And I will post links to those on my blog as well. So for those of you listening and you're driving your car and you're like, oh, I want to write that down. Don't worry. Just go to my website and I will have all of that information to link you to Kathy so that you can find her and get signed up for her boot camp. That would be amazing. What a good way to kind of like knock some sense into you, get you on the right track. I love like the idea of a boot camp. Usually like I think of boot camps, I think of fitness
Right.
and it's like super hard work, but
Yeah.
that's amazing. So find me on my website, prism-healing.com, where you'll find my healing services available for anyone who's looking to unblock your limited beliefs on money and you are wanting to manifest wellness and prosperity, but you keep hitting these patterns and these blocks and you don't know why. I think an integrated processing technique is a fantastic opportunity to dive into what point and what age did that start and what do I need to know about that so that I can heal and unblock from that trauma. I also am on Instagram at prism_healing and TikTok at Prism Healing and Facebook at Courtney Pearl's Prism Healing. So you can find me on any of those places. I think that's about it. Is there anything else? I will be having another Heart Smart Art workshop starting in January for the little guys, age 5 to 8. Well, 5 to 9. I'm a little flexible on that. But it's a once a month workshop for little kids to just help them learn how to understand their feelings and express feelings through art. And so if you are listening now and you're wanting to get your little one signed up, please reach out to me at any of those places that I just mentioned, my website. And then you can also go to my website to check out my blog, which I have all of my episodes of the podcast. And I will have a blog post for this one as well. So I think that's about it. Thank you so much, Kathy, for coming.
Oh,
It's been a blast.
oh, it's been such a wonderful conversation. I really, again, appreciate you inviting me in because I do. There's so much intersection, and however, people want to heal and really support their wellness is great. So,
I agree.
yeah,
We're all in the community of wellness together. So
yeah, exactly.
witches and wizards, go make magic.
Yes.